So Lisa Murkowski just became the first Republican senator to demand Trump's resignation after what happened at the U.S. Capitol. She basically said in an interview today, "I want him out." And further, she's questioning whether she should be a Republican at all in the first place. But before everyone starts showering Murkowski with praise, I want people to understand that she likely doesn't deserve it, especially given that she has yet to actually quit the Republican Party, and when it was crucial during impeachment, she was nowhere to be found. But I want to read you her statement, and then let's break it down a little bit and talk about how Murkowski always tries to have her cake and eat it too. So it notes here, "I want him to resign. I want him out. He has caused enough damage," Murkowski, Alaska, said during an interview from her small Capitol office, steps away from the Senate chambers that were invaded by Trump rioters. "I think he should leave. He said he's not going to show up. He's not going to appear at the inauguration. He hasn't been focused on what's going on with COVID. He's either golfing or he's been inside the Oval Office, fuming and throwing every single person who has been loyal and faithful to him under the bus, starting with the vice president. He doesn't want to stay here. He only wants to stay there for the title. He only wants to stay there for his ego. He needs to get out. He needs to do the good thing, but I don't think he's capable of doing a good thing," she said. And, you know, she's not wrong there. Like, nothing she said there necessarily is factually wrong. But Murkowski is always one of these people, sort of like Susan Collins, who are queens of concern. If you notice them, they're always troubled or concerned or worried about what Trump says and does and thinks. And more often than not, most of the time, they still voted with Donald Trump. They still supported his broad anti-democratic vision. You know, they didn't back him every time, and Murkowski and Collins back him less than the typical Republican, but they still backed him most of the time. And unlike Mitt Romney, and I hate having to praise him, they didn't support impeachment. They didn't. They did not support impeachment. And so I'm not going to give this lady laurels and give her a medal and give her a cookie for calling for Trump's resignation, even though I can recognize it as significant. Because let's be clear, while people like Ben Sasse have said they would be open to potentially voting to impeach if the, impeachment proceedings go through the House and end up for confirmation in the Senate, this is the first major Republican in the Senate to call for his resignation. So you could do both at the same time. And let's be clear, this is a person that even if they were going to quit the Republican Party, wouldn't quit the underlying social and economic policies that fundamentally hurt the American working class and created the context that made Donald Trump possible. I want to read you a passage from later on in this interview where she talks about potentially leaving the GOP. And she says here, "Well, there's a lot of people who actually thought I did that in 2010, that I became an independent. I didn't have any reason to leave the party in 2010. I was a Republican who ran a write-in campaign, and I was successful. But I will tell you, if the Republican Party has become nothing more than the party of Trump, I sincerely question whether that's the party for me." And then she says here about the new Senate, which is Democratic controlled because of the tiebreaker. The U.S. Senate is now split 50-50 between Republicans and Democratic aligned senators, and the tie-breaking vote will be held by Vice President Kamala Harris. Murkowski said she is disappointed that Republicans lost the Senate majority by losing 2 Georgia runoff elections. And she goes on to say, well, look, I can work with Democrats like Joe Manchin, who I ripped yesterday or earlier today, for trying to bust the $2,000 check policy, one of the few good things Biden is promising right now. And it's absolutely absurd. She can change that R to whatever she wants. She can change it to an I, an E, a Q. I don't care. If she's sad that the Trump-backing Republican Party lost the Senate, She's a Republican, because what she's saying is, oh yeah, I guess I don't like Trump's performativeness. I don't like Trump's open hatred of democracy, but I'm fine with Mitch McConnell, who did everything in his power to empower Trump, never really opposed Trump, did everything he could to give Trump his cookies because Trump gave him his judges and his tax cuts. I wanted that turtle to have all the power again in the next Senate. She's not an independent then. If she was a true independent that, maybe wanted to leave the Republican Party behind, 50-50 should be ideal for her, because 50-50 with the Democrats in control punishes Trump's backers, but doesn't give a whole lot of power to the Democrats. That she's sad that Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue lost their seats, even though they were huge Trump backers and they were insider traders and they profited off the suffering of their own constituents. And Loeffler in particular voted with Trump basically, I think maybe literally 100% of the time, tells me she's still a Republican. People like Murkowski and people like Collins, and even people like Romney and Sass, they are going to cynically use this moment to either humanize the Republican Party, themselves, or both. If they can't humanize the party, then maybe they'll do like Murkowski does and muse about quitting. But if they feel they can do both, they're going to do both. But I want you to remember this, that barring very, very few examples, Donald Trump took over the Republican Party. Yes, because the base really believed in him. Yes, because 93% of Republicans like him. But also because all of those people that said back in 2015 and 2016 that if Trump becomes president, at the very least, you'll have, good, honest Republican senators and congressmen that will hold him to account. They lied to you and they rolled over to him more than anyone else ever. Don't let Lisa Murkowski make herself into a hero right now. As I've noted, the bare minimum is denouncing Trump and quitting the Republican Party. You don't get praise until you start fighting the Republican Party.